foundationally what people would want to do is they'd want to eat enough protein first, and veggies. Like fiber is also super important here, and healthy fats, and just like try to avoid what I would call like naked carbs.
I would love to hear what your thoughts are on those, just to have people have a little bit of a takeaway of something they could be doing or should maybe be doing today.
Yeah. Gosh, so many things I want like everyone, I wish everyone would just do. So I think going back, like balancing your blood sugar is key. It's a non-negotiable. And do you have to get it right 100% of the time? No, like you're gonna get into a pickle. And I also think it's really important to like do what you can to get out of your head, like be with your friends, be with your family, like go to a funny movie, go to a dance class, like these things can also help us like pattern interrupt, right? Because when we're on our own and then we're like scrolling Instagram and we're reading and then we're listening to podcasts and then we're watching things about it on YouTube, it's like, you'll just spiral yourself out. And I'm not blaming you. I did this.
No,
like
same.
And if anyone struggles with that, they know that the bloating obviously sucks, but I mean, it really starts to mess with like your mental health, your confidence. Like you start canceling plans, you don't want to eat out, and then you start fearing food. So then like my relationship with food that was already rocky from like years of chronic dieting and restrictive eating was
Hey friends, welcome back to the Awakening Spaces podcast. Today we have a very special guest, Hannah Aylward. She is a gut health practitioner and she is helping women who have tried everything, who've done it all, who have been struggling to heal and cannot get to the root of their persistent gut issues. But Hannah is taking it one step further. She's really looking at things holistically. And today she's going to share with us how she helps people heal their chronic digestive issues. And you're not going to want to miss this one. If you're anything like me, I know I had my own story with chronic digestive issues, and it was really a big piece of the puzzle that led me to the work that I do today. So stay tuned for this episode. I can't wait for you to learn more, and let's dive in. Hey, Hannah.
Hello.
Welcome. I'm so excited to have you here. I would love for you to share a little bit more about who you are, what you do, and maybe take us through a moment in your own gut health journey where you realized that something was really off, and that's what sort of set what you do in motion for you.
Yes, I'm so excited to be on the podcast. Thanks for having me. So for anyone that isn't really familiar with who I am, my name's Hannah Aylward, and I am the founder of Han. And at Han, we really help women overcome chronic digestive issues by taking a functional root cause approach to repairing the gut. And we see really just a lot of like chronic GI issues. So severe bloating, quote unquote IBS, it could be reflux, constipation, diarrhea, lots of different food sensitivities and reactions, histamine overload. And with all of that, we do see quite a bit of mold and mold exposure and kind of mold toxicity playing a role. So that's really what we do. How I got into this work was I probably, like a lot of people, I struggled with my own issues and no one could really figure them out. And I was kind of the girl that like all my friends knew as the healthy one. I was eating super clean. I don't think I ate gluten or dairy for like a full decade. And that's not an exaggeration. And I was just like living on elimination diets and doing like detoxes and cleanses and different programs. And I was still dealing with this like chronic bloating to the point where I looked like 6 months pregnant at the end of the day. And it was starting to really like deeply impact my life. And if anyone struggles with that, they know that the bloating obviously sucks, but I mean, it really starts to mess with like your mental health, your confidence. Like you start canceling plans, you don't want to eat out, and then you start fearing food. So then like my relationship with food that was already rocky from like years of chronic dieting and restrictive eating was then just like exacerbated, right? Because I was like, now I'm afraid of these foods because they're quote unquote not healthy or because they set off my bloating or whatever. So I had just like truly deeply felt like I had done it all. Like I was like taking out gluten, taking out dairy, tried enzymes, done like taken berberine, taken oregano oil, taken L-glutamine so many different times. And done all of these things. And I was like looking into this functional medicine approach to quote unquote heal the gut. And I was like, I'm doing all this. Like, what is going on? And that's when I discovered that there's more to the conversation than just like the food that you're eating. And then we can really deeply take like a targeted approach to repairing the gut. And that is what truly changed my life and changed the game for me, along with also really understanding that I did have mold exposure that was playing a role that I was completely unaware of because that conversation was like not really happening, that no one was really talking about that. So I was really focused on like my food, my food, my food. And I do believe that nutrition and food is so incredibly powerful, but I was like, if I just eat perfectly, everything's going to go away. And then, I will quote unquote decrease inflammation and I will, all of these things like gluten's inflammatory and dairy's inflammatory and all this stuff. And there's a time and place for all of this, but it wasn't really like working for me. I was still like burping and I ended up being super sensitive to like alcohol, which we know is not healthy for anyone, but I would throw up after having one drink. It was
Wow.
Oh yeah, it was bad. And then I had this layer of like inflammatory weight. So that I just like that couldn't budge and no one really felt like they understood what I was going through because I have always been in a thin body. It was more so like I feel like I'm like bursting out of my skin almost, which is like
Mhm.
very much like inflammation. And sometimes I hear clients say that to us too. They're like, I don't know how to describe this other than like a sausage casing. And I'm like, no, that's inflammation. Like
Yes.
that's when we know. Yeah. So I was just kind of like, I have IBS and no one really knows what's going on and like clean up your diet. And then it wasn't working and I did it all. And that's kind of how I got onto this path and found functional testing and really started to understand the gut microbiome. And that's why I just like kind of dedicate my life to this work today.
Oh my gosh. And that is why I'm so happy to have you here because that was one of the biggest issues for me, 8 years ago was I couldn't go out without knowing where a bathroom was at. Like it was,
Mhm.
the gut issues were horrendous. And I did every single diet under the sun.
Mhm.
Very, very similar story to you. And nothing was working. And it wasn't until I found a functional who
Mhm.
was, did some testing with me for mold. And we realized that had been playing a huge role in everything. And that's really what set me down this path.
Yeah.
But then even removing the mold though, that wasn't enough, right? We need
Mm.
so many other things. And I learned that the hard way. So I love that you are like balancing all of that and really looking at it all from a very holistic perspective. Because it's so needed. You do need a good diet, but you also need
Mhm.
to be looking at the environment too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what were some of the most surprising things that you discovered in your healing journey that maybe you weren't expecting, whether it's physical or emotional?
Oh my goodness, so much. It's like you're constantly peeling back the layers. And honestly, like I still am today. Not that I really don't resonate with like being sick anymore. Like I feel like my body is incredibly resilient and I don't really have gut issues and I've like come such a long way, but there's always like another deeper layer of health and just kind of a, like evolution, right? Because I say this to clients, like your health is not this thing that you just like get to and you're just there and then you just stop, right? It's you're evolving, your life is evolving, your story's evolving, and you don't go to the gym once and then expect to like maintain a six pack, right? Like
Mhm.
it's like consistency and upkeep and that's not to sometimes I think that can feel overwhelming or like draining to people. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm never gonna get out of this. But it kind of just becomes like a way of life. And also I think just flipping the perspective of like what a gift it is that I get to know this body and learn this body and take care of this body. And, without your health, nothing else really matters once your health takes a hit. So I've learned so much and been surprised by so much. And I feel like I'm always constantly learning and my team is always learning. Like I have a whole team of functional practitioners and we're always in additional trainings about a new thing or this layer of this. And, so it really doesn't end. But I do think that going back to the nutrition piece, like I really thought that nutrition was gonna like save me, or like these elimination diets were gonna like save me. And I think I had to learn I had to learn that there was just more to the story. And I speak out about that so much because I was the one on the restrictive diets for like a really long time and really believing that. And then when they didn't work, I started to think, I'm just broken. Like there's something I'm gonna be like this forever, and no one can figure it out. And that's that. And little did I know there were just like so many additional layers to it, like actual digestion. Are you digesting your food efficiently? And minerals and toxin exposure and all these other things that were just kind of getting in the way of my body doing what it knows how to do naturally. So I was very much like clean eating, all organic, gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, all of that, which is it's fine. That's fine. But what do you do when that's not really like getting you to that next level? So I do think, once again, like nutrition is so powerful and amazing, and it is part of the foundations. It has to be. There's no way around that. But there's, for the person that feels like they're doing all of that right and they're still feeling bad, like there's
Mm.
just other things to explore, and that should feel good. That should feel like, reassuring because you're not broken. There's just like something else kind of getting in the way of your body fully healing. So I think that was surprising to me. And then mold, I mean, I was not taught anything about that. I didn't know anything about that. I mean, I would have thought that eating my, gluten-free, dairy-free, veggie-filled diet would have just taken care of it. And it didn't. And I was living in a lot of mold exposure and I had no idea, like none, how that would impact my health. And I actually knew a ton about the gut at that point, but no one had really mentioned the toxin exposure piece. So I think understanding that and understanding that if you're living in an environment that's making you sick, the other stuff can't work to its fullest extent.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm curious, how often do you see people in your practice coming in with gut issues where there is an environmental piece or mold component to it, like an underlying mold component? Like, what percentage of people would you say actually have that underlying piece?
It's a good question. More than I would like,
Yeah.
more than I want to see. I always say like I did not want to become a mycotoxin expert. Like I was not, and I never wanted to work with mold.
Yep.
We had to. We had to start learning about it because people weren't. It would stop people from getting better. So it's definitely not involved in everyone's case. And as I'm sure like there's nuance to it, exposure levels, detoxification capabilities, other toxins that are filling your bucket, nervous system, right? So it's a nuanced conversation. So it's not the underlying root cause for everyone, but I would say probably like, gosh, I feel like we're seeing it more and more, maybe 20 or 30% of people.
Mm.
Um, we're running a lot of mycotoxin panels, yeah, these days. And honestly, we're seeing a lot of like metal, like heavy metals now too, which once again, we never wanted to get into, but we had to.
Yeah. How, what would you say in percentage of people with heavy metals? Are you seeing more like about the same
Yeah,
percentage there?
our data may be skewed because we're really like not only now looking for it, but now kind of, like the overlapping symptoms of heavy metal exposure and mold exposure, there's a lot. Like they can present very similarly. So we're kind of digging into more testing it now. So it's possible that um we just weren't testing as much for it before. So I don't want to skew the data here, but a smaller percentage. I do think mold is impacting people more, but like we just had what was so interesting is we're seeing all of these clients. And this is the first time I'm saying this in public. We're seeing all of these clients from California have really high uranium levels. I don't know if you can speak to
Interesting.
that, but we're getting these tests back and like all of these people have high uranium and we've gotten like six of them in a row. And yes, that's not like 3,000, but I'm like this is a at this point this is a pattern. So and then we're trying to figure out where it's coming from. So anyway, long-winded way of saying that, but I would say a smaller percentage than mold, but maybe 10%.
Yeah. I would look into their water for sure if
Yeah.
you're seeing that, because I know this is a really interesting thing that I learned about myself here in my water. I
Hmm.
had a friend who does muscle testing,
Hmm.
and we were sitting together one day at lunch, and she was muscle testing me, and she said, um, uranium and radon, it keeps coming up for you. She's like, you're getting
Mm,
exposed somehow. And I had installed a mitigation system in my home, and I knew that my like indoor levels were, acceptable. And she grabbed my water bottle and she goes, I'm testing your water. And when you do a water test, like a general water test, they are not testing for the alpha and beta glucans from uranium. So you have to
mm,
actually order that test separately, and it's really expensive. So I ended
mm.
up getting that test and found out that I had actually had really high levels of uranium in my water. And so that is something that, it's not really straightforward, but definitely I
Yeah.
would say checking water and making sure people are doing that test. But that's
Mhm.
interesting that you're just seeing a cluster of that now more, wonder what the coincidence is there.
I know. I know. It's like I don't want to. I'm like hesitant to mention it because I don't want anyone to be like scared or because we don't exactly know yet, but it is a pattern that we're seeing, which is interesting. And a lot of these people are drinking filtered water, but
Hmm.
maybe, and even have like shower head filters and all of
Hmm.
that. And then we had another client actually who she got a lot better and then symptoms came back. And for her, it was specifically like this reflux. And we had done all this gut work with her. And then we found out that she also tested high for one heavy metal. I'm forgetting which one it was. And then back, we like traced it back because you have to like, you're like, where is this coming from? And
Hmm.
where she was living in that area, there was like a lawsuit because there was like a runoff situation or like a leak situation like in her area. And it got into the water. And it was just, it's not on like CNN or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's but she had gotten that exposure and then her body was struggling to get those levels out. Once we brought those levels down, she's doing better now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean the environment is playing a role and it's sometimes it can be hard to track down a little.
Yeah. So you mentioned symptoms. You mentioned symptom overlap. Can you share a little bit about what some of those symptoms are, specifically environmental, that maybe you're noticing as a pattern in your clients?
Yeah. So if there is like mold exposure, oh gosh, there's like a whole slew of things that can be associated with that. Things that will happen commonly with both heavy metal exposure and mold exposure is like the person just like can't get better, right? So
Yeah.
it's like all of these interventions are all of our best interventions that are working on all of our other clients, like aren't quite working on them. So we're using these things, we're like optimizing digestion, we're taking bacteria levels down, all of that, and things still aren't budging for them. They still have digestive issues, they still have bloating, they still have reflux. We'll see like headaches, migraines. With mold specifically, you can get the like sinus issues. So you can get like recurring sinus infections. Like if anyone says to me they get recurring sinus infections and they have gut issues, I'm like, we got to test for mold.
Hmm.
That's kind of like a no-brainer to me. And yes, it's not the cause in every situation, but that's a big one. Chronic skin stuff. So like rashes and even acne, like that can be a big one. That once again, like other interventions aren't working on. And then the other thing too is like sometimes we'll run these like stool tests because we run a stool test on every client and we'll run functional stool testing and we'll see that the gut microbiome piece is actually not looking that off. But they're presenting with all of these symptoms, like it could be full body symptoms, right? Everything from like headaches to bloating to constipation to, hair loss, whatever. But the functional stool test is that actually doesn't look that bad. So like when someone doesn't match the data that we're getting, that's like a big flag for me too. I'm like, we've got to go digging. It can be many things. It could be biofilms, it could be other stuff, but I'm like, that's when my brain starts going, okay, maybe there's like a toxin exposure. So if anyone's done some of that and you've explored some of that and you've gotten like the Jam app, for example, and then you're like, well, there's not really that much to address on it, but like I'm so sick, what's going on? I would start looking into toxins. But yeah, like a lot of skin stuff, hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's, like the toxin exposure. There's not always, but very commonly a toxin exposure component to that.
Mm.
And then yeah, chronic GI issues and skin stuff is what we see a lot. And then anyone that's really like histamine. I say
Yeah.
histamine, that's not a medical term. Um, but dealing with like higher levels of histamine or like that histamine overload picture, there
Hmm.
could be something going on there too.
Yeah. Do you ever, I'm kind of going off a little bit here, but have you ever worked with anyone who has keratosis pilaris? And what have you seen have you seen anything as a link to that
Yeah,
specifically?
that's a good question. We don't get a ton of that, but I've gotten this question before. And I have keratosis pilaris. So, there's that. So I've seen what's helped me and what's not. I do believe, and so one of the practitioners on my team, her name is Marley, and she's also a licensed esthetician in addition to a functional registered dietitian. And she's mentored under like this amazing naturopathic doctor who specializes in skin conditions. So she's like our I call her the skin queen. She sees everyone with like chronic acne and eczema and psoriasis and all of that on the team. And when I asked her about it, she was like big time like mitochondrial function, like poor
Mm,
mitochondrial function and cell membrane issues, can be a big thing there. And then I like to say omega threes, and then because a lot of people have, there's the whole conversation of seed oils and omega sixes and all of that, and I kind of take a slightly different take on that because honestly, when you look at the data, there's kind of data to support both sides of it. But I do really strongly believe that we're getting just a ton of exposure to omega 6s and
mm,
not enough to omega 3s. So I don't think omega 6s are bad in nature, just like bad, period. But I think we're just intaking a lot of those versus omega 3s, which are kind of hard to get from the diet unless you're like really on it and you're eating like sardines and salmon like all the time, right? Whereas seed oils just sneak into everything and you're just
yeah.
getting tons of those. So I think that does matter because it does influence the cell membrane. So I think increasing omega threes in the diet and being strategic with that, like supplementing, most people will benefit from supplementing that, can be helpful for that. So I look into like mitochondrial health and then like cell membrane health and bringing down inflammation. And then I will say, decreasing gluten did help mine a bit.
Hmm. Oh
Mm.
yeah, that helped a ton. And I thought it was the dairy too. And
Yep.
but what I've noticed is decreasing gluten and really focusing on gut um,
Hmm.
has really allowed me to eat dairy and notice that the skin issue has gone away, which has
Yes.
been interesting.
Yeah, same. I've had the same experience. Like mine used to be so bad, just like personal, right? So it's not like I have a ton of clients to like back this, but because it's not a number one complaint that people would come to us with. But no, mine was so bad. I was like so embarrassed and I would like want to not show my arms.
Yeah.
And doing the deeper gut work, mine has decreased like, oh my gosh, like 80% probably. And then yeah, I can eat dairy now and I would have never touched it before.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we see that very consistently in clients. Like over and over and over again, clients come in can't eating dairy, they can't tolerate dairy. We repair the gut, they can eat it again. Like that's one of the most common things that we see.
Hmm. So I'd say most of my audience is coming here from an environmental standpoint, but maybe they're just listening and they have gut issues and they're like,
Mhm.
okay, well, how do I know? How do I know if I just need to do these foundational gut things? How do I know if it's my environment? If someone was coming to you, what would you tell them? What would you do?
Yeah. It's a good question. So I will say like if you don't have the foundations in place already, and I can break what I mean by foundations is like, are we balancing our blood sugar? Are we eating mostly whole foods? So yeah, I mean not a bunch of processed like packaged stuff. The client that comes to us, like they took that out a long time ago. They're kind of like they're not eating McDonald's, for example, right? They're more health aware. They've tried like keto and Whole30 and all of these things, low FODMAP. So they are kind of already doing that. However, the common pattern we see is like women aren't eating enough, they're not eating enough protein, and they're just not eating enough in general, like they're not hitting their caloric needs. And very often women will come in eating like 50 grams of protein when we would love to get them up to like 100 to like 120. 120 is a lot. Aim for 100. Honestly, get up to 80. I'll be happy if you just get up to 80. But that's a big thing. So sometimes you can think that you're like eating healthy because you like are, eating a lot of veggies or you don't eat like fried food, but there's still some like gaps in it. So I would say make sure you've got the foundations down, which I would consider like eating mostly whole foods, anti-inflammatory foods, foods that are rich and nutrient dense, balancing your blood sugar. That's really, really key to essentially everything: your energy, your gut function, your hormone balance, cortisol, progesterone, your sleep, like literally everything, your skin, acne. I mean,
Hmm.
headaches, all of it. That's one of the simplest, most like game-changing things that you can do. And then, of course, like, are you prioritizing sleep? Are you getting to bed on time? Are you getting morning sun exposure? And then minerals, I would kind of put into that foundation too. Along with like, are you supporting your detox pathways like gently? Like, how often are you moving? How often are you sweating? That kind of stuff I would work on first. If you're not doing any of that, start there. If you are doing that stuff and then you are still dealing with these chronic digestive issues, then I would say like it's time to take another layer deeper, which would I'm a big proponent for functional testing. I don't think we need, I think sometimes people use like way too much testing. We try to find a balance because too much data is honestly just confusing for everyone involved. So, but I do think like a functional stool test, like it changed my whole life, this test. And I finally started to understand like why I was burping and like tossing and turning and waking up like bloated and all of that kind of stuff from deeper gut issues. So I would say like if you're not doing the foundation, start there. If you are, then it might be a step to like a sign to take it a layer deeper. And what I would consider more quote unquote normal is like you go out to dinner with friends and you're like you eat some slices of pizza and you like have a beer and you're feeling like a little bloated, and then like you go to bed, the next day you wake up and you're fine, and that I would say is like pretty normal. Maybe you have like a little bit of bloating like right before your period or something, or even just like a presence, or yeah, you're like out late and you're not in like a good supportive routine and things are a little off, and then you can recover quickly. That I would consider just like being human. you know
Yeah.
um if you are waking up bloated, if you are bloated after everything that you eat, if your bloating is interfering with, or I say bloating, but like your constipation or diarrhea or reflux or any of these things, if they are interfering with your life to the point where, like you mentioned, I'm clocking the bathroom everywhere I go. I haven't gone to the bathroom in 5 days, like, and I'm in pain. My reflux is, I'm having to take all of these foods out of my diet because this is happening. I'm canceling plans. I have to unbutton my pants. Like that is where I would say like we got to investigate here because something else is going on, and not to scare anyone, but it's not going to get any better unless you address it. So don't kind of like brush it off and be like, oh yeah, like I'm just a little bloated and like that's fine. And then, you give it a year and it's gonna be more consistent and it's gonna be worse. So
Yeah,
it's something to look into.
absolutely. So, are there things that you think that every single person should be doing no matter what?
Hmm. Yes.
I would love to hear what your thoughts are on those, just to have
Um,
people have a little bit of a takeaway of something they could be doing or should maybe be doing today.
yeah. Gosh, so many things I want like everyone. I wish everyone would just do. So I think going back, like balancing your blood sugar is key. It's a non-negotiable. And do you have to get it like right 100% of the time? No. Like you're gonna get into a pickle. Do you want me to break that
Well,
down?
I was going to ask, what does that look like for you? Like, can you
Yeah.
give some data points? If, let's say, someone wants to go out and buy something to test their blood sugar, what
Mm.
would they want to look for? What does good look like? What does out of range look like? Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. We don't use continuous glucose monitors too often. So I would say like I think they're great if you want to gather data for like a period of 2 weeks and then you take it off. I would be mindful if you have a history of restrictive eating or restrictive dieting, or you're kind of like you're pushing like you have this fear and kind of like hypervigilance around food because it may just trigger that a little bit. We see a continuous glucose monitor showing us what we didn't already know, not that often. So it's like we kind of already know what we need to do. However, sometimes the data is what really like wakes people up. So that's cool. If you're seeing your like fasting, like if you go to bed and like your levels are high, like they're like 100 plus overnight, I would consider that a problem. If you're noticing that things are like, because everyone's like fasted glucose is gonna differ a little bit. But if you're noticing really high highs and then really big drops, that would also be something to look into from my perspective. Your blood sugar will bump when you eat anything. So I think there was this big trend of like balance your blood sugar and never, and never like have it raised. Like, no, in a healthy body, your body can bring those levels back down. I mean, that's why we have insulin. That's why, so it can self-regulate. Unless of course you have like diabetes or you're pre-diabetic or you have insulin resistance, that's kind of a different conversation. But I would say, you know, be mindful of using it if it's just gonna freak you out.
Yeah.
High highs and low lows are not great. High levels overnight are not great. Um, and then yeah, I mean, I think in order to do that, like foundationally, what people would want to do is they'd want to eat enough protein first, and veggies. Like fiber is also super important here, and healthy fats, and just like try to avoid what I would call like naked carbs. So carbohydrates are not bad. We need them. They're great. Our thyroid needs them. Our energy levels. Like I'm not here to demonize them at all. I think especially women and menstruating women, like we need carbohydrates. With that being said, we don't want to eat a big source of carbohydrates without a protein or a fat source or a fiber source in there because it will kind of spike that blood sugar a bit higher than we want it. So that would look like even healthier stuff like, Simple Mills crackers, if you're familiar with those. Like I love
Mm.
those and they're delicious. But if you eat just a bunch of them on their own, they're mostly carbs and they're fine. They're totally fine to add into your diet, but like eat them with honestly some cheese or eat them with some turkey slices or some like avocado on top or something to help to balance that blood sugar level. So yeah, I would say, those can be some tips for people and really making sure you're getting in enough fiber as well. So there's like been a big push towards protein, which I think is great because most women are under eating it, but you got to get in enough fiber too. So aiming for like 30, maybe even 35 grams a day, which would be great, which takes a little bit of effort. You got to really like make sure you're watching it. So yeah, those are some ways that some things that people can start. So that's kind of like the
Yeah.
blood sugar piece. And then what I think would benefit everyone too is like go to bed.
Just go to bed.
Just go to bed.
And
Really try to get 8 hours. Like if you're pushing a morning workout and you have to wake up and you only sleep 6 hours in your workout, I'm like, I honestly don't think it's worth it. Like I think sleep is even more important, especially for a woman in her fertile years.
mm,
Um, Very important there. Morning sunshine exposure, I think, is like
mm,
so incredibly important and like free and easy. Like literally
yeah.
just step outside for, I like to say 10 minutes, but honestly, I'll take 3 minutes. Just go out there for
Yeah.
3 minutes. Um,
Anything.
Anything. Yeah. To just like kind of regulate that circadian rhythm and support so many things. Which I could kind of like go on about. And honestly, it directly supports gut function and gut health
Hmm.
too. But those I think are some good foundations for everyone. And then also like have practices in your routine to regulate your nervous system. I think
Mm,
in this world now, there's no way around it.
yeah.
We've got to get some of that in place.
Absolutely. There's two things. I want to touch on the nervous system piece, but I also want to go back to light because that's
Hmm.
something I find extremely important. It's something that really has helped me regulate my hormones
Yeah.
fully, is really getting a consistent light practice from seeing the morning sun, but also really decreasing our blue light exposure, which
Yeah.
is also going to make you want to go to bed earlier because you're going to get more naturally tired as your melatonin increases because you're decreasing that blue light, which is suppressing your melatonin. So, how do you
I
see
love that.
light really playing a role in your practice with the gut? Do you see more, can you touch on that just a little bit more?
Yeah, I think it's so important. It's so important. I recently had on my podcast, Carrie Bennett. Do you know,
Oh, I
do you know who that is?
love Carrie.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I had her on.
oh, I have to listen to that. She's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, and she was like great to explain some of like the actual research behind it and then I was able to kind of like dig into it and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this like confirms, it's just like emphasizes how important it is," which I think intuitively we know. Right? Like we were designed to like wake up with the sun, go to bed as the sun goes down, and we've just as we've modernized and as technology has developed, we just get really off that like regular rhythm. So I do think deep in our gut and intuitively, like we know that it's important and we just kind of like resist it or life, pulls us in other directions or whatever. But I do in my like signature gut repairing program, I have a whole module on the circadian rhythm. I think it's very important for there is some great interesting data to show that it can impact like irritable bowel disease, it can impact the gut lining, and it can
Mhm.
impact gut motility, like pretty directly. It can also influence obviously vitamin D levels, but it can raise and I'm you may want to fact check this. I don't want to misspeak, but I believe it can raise vitamin D levels like and support the gut, not even through the absorption of the skin. There's something very interesting there. She really likes to recommend getting sun exposure like directly on the abdomen for like 20
Mhm.
minutes once a week, which I think is like fascinating. So,
Mhm.
so yeah, I think there's many ways that we can pull it in, but from what the research shows is like gut lining and inflammation, gut motility, and your gut has its own circadian rhythm too, right? So it's
Mhm.
like you don't really want to be eating at like 3 a.m. and you kind of want to be eating, Ayurveda really speaks to this. Like eat when the sun is up and don't eat after the sun's gone
Mhm.
down, which we would have naturally done previously before, iPhones and TVs and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I think yes, it directly impacts the gut. And what I see and how I really started like looking into it was like cortisol. So, um, the most impactful thing that you can do to raise your cortisol in like a healthy way, as it kind of should be raised, is morning sunlight, is light exposure, and this is going to help more than any supplement or more than any other intervention, which I think is like absolutely amazing because it's free and we just step outside.
Free.
Yeah, which it's fantastic. And I had low cortisol personally after just
Mhm.
years of high cortisol. And anyone that, if you wake up feeling like totally exhausted and I was waking up with like some headaches and I was noticing that like even after a cup of coffee, I feel like I have no fuel. Like there's no fuel in the gas tank.
Yep.
And it was after just like a couple like, hard, intense years and life happens. And I had kind of been like riding like high cortisol over and over again. So after it's high for a while, it's going to crash low. And I think low is way worse because high, you kind of like, you can ride the like, oh, it's okay. Like I actually feel okay, you know?
Yeah.
And then you get low and you're like, I'm freaking exhausted, So, um, anyway, going back to light, like that was one of the things that helped me the most in raising my morning cortisol levels to a high level, like to a more normal level because they should be higher in the morning and lower at night. So it directly impacts cortisol. And I believe that there's an impact on progesterone production as well. But I don't want to misspeak there. So I think it's like totally key, and
Yeah.
easy to implement.
Yeah. Um, so I love this conversation on the nervous system as well, um,
Mhm.
because I think like part of my story is just being like type A, super stressed,
Yeah.
like creating my own internal stress. And what are some things that you help clients with? Like, what are some easy practices people could take away if maybe they're like that, or maybe even if they're not like that, but they're just trying to regulate their nervous system a little bit?
Yeah. It's a great question. And I think that like it can be taken in so many directions and it kind of depends on the person. But I lead my client through breath work. Like I think breath work
Mhm.
is a wonderful tool to help to regulate the nervous system. There is some cool data to show that like utilizing the breath is one of kind of the fastest ways that you can exit that sympathetic fight or flight state and enter that parasympathetic or rest and digest state, which directly impacts your gut health and gut
Mhm.
function and stomach acid production and all of that. So I love breath work personally, and I find that clients enjoy it as well, especially those that kind of run type A and quick thinking,
Mhm.
because usually we're resistant to meditation. We're like, well, I don't have time to just sit down. Um,
Close my eyes.
right. And so that I think is like if you feel like you're super resistant to meditation, I would really explore that, number one.
Yep.
Um, and I'm not immune to that, am very type A myself and perfectionism and all of that and go, go, go. Leaning back and relaxing is harder for me. So like you're not alone in this. So breath work I think is a great tool because you're still kind of like actively doing something,
Hmm.
but it's still kind of shifting you into that more parasympathetic. But I find that there's just less resistance for the brain there because you can like count, right? So you can be like,
Right.
inhale for 4, exhale for 5. And that I feel like the brain is like, okay, I'm less resistant to this than just like observing my thoughts or being super quiet or anything like that. And I love like the VU breath specifically. So that's something that your community can take away, like the inhale through the nose and then exhale to making that VU sound.
Mhm.
Great for tonifying the vagus nerve. And I feel like if I do, even just 3 minutes of that, I'm like, whew, there I am. That feels better.
Yeah. And that's just like a deep breath. And then
Mhm.
you're just like, "Voo," like, and you just keep it going until you kind of can't go anymore.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's great. Like you can put one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly, and really inhale, filling up that lower belly, and then on the exhale, pursing the lips and making that vu sound, and you'll feel the subtle vibration in your
Mhm.
chest and in your tummy, which I think can be helpful for people. And that's the vagus nerve goes all the way down,
Mhm.
and you can kind of feel that subtle vibration is what helps to tonify that vagus nerve. So
Mhm.
any like gargling or humming or chanting or oming or anything or the VU breath is great for that.
Mhm.
So I think that's a really wonderful tool. I also love breath work because it's free and you can do it anywhere. Like I'll do that while like my conditioner is setting in the
Yeah.
shower, like um
Yeah.
especially if I'm gonna get on a podcast or I'm gonna jump into a day of calls and I'm like a little like I'm like wound up. You can do it while you're like making eggs. You can do it
Yeah.
while you're driving to pick your kids up from school. So,
Yeah.
there's really no excuse.
Yeah.
There's no excuse.
Habit stacking. We love habit stacking.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, what about let's go back to somebody who has that mold piece. Maybe now
Mhm.
they've learned about mold, maybe they've been impacted. Um, you know, there's a lot of fear there.
Oh yeah.
For somebody specifically going through that, is there something else that you would recommend, like a brain retraining, or can you
Mhm.
speak to that a little bit more?
Yeah. I know it's so much. It's so scary. It really wigged my nervous system out, let me
Yeah.
tell you. When we've talked about this before,
Yeah.
not on this podcast, I was like so terrified of mold and arguably still am a little scared of it. And just kind of more like aware, right? I was like every room I'd walk into, I'd be like, "Is there mold in here?" And
Yeah.
so it really winds you up. And I feel for people so much when they go through it. And I've been there. So I do think that other practices like neurofeedback or EMDR, or sometimes we'll recommend like the Gupta program. These things can be really helpful because sometimes when you're the best way I can describe it is like you're so deep in this fear like cycle that you kind of like can't even see out of it. Like the light at the end of the tunnel is dwindling and it's the pattern gets so activated that breath work is not even going to do it anymore. You almost need something to like come in and intervene with that what's the word I'm looking for? Like thought pattern or like
Like an
neural
interrupt.
pathway.
Yeah.
Yeah, just interrupt it. So I think neurofeedback can be great for that. And EMDR can be great for that too. Like when I was going through it, I got myself into therapy and I started EMDR and it was like so freaking helpful.
Mhm.
So that kind of requires finding someone in your area and things like that. But I think those are our two like go-tos. Do you have things specifically that you like?
Neurofeedback has helped me so much because neurological issues were one of the biggest things I struggled with.
Yeah.
I've been doing neurofeedback for almost a year and a half. I thought it was going to be like this 3 month, 6 month thing, and I was going to be better. It really has taken me a long time, but it's
Mhm.
helped so much.
Yeah.
But I know that doesn't always work for everyone.
Hmm.
I've had people who have tried neurofeedback and they've had some adverse reactions to it. So it's like one of
Yeah.
those things. Again, it's not a one. None of these things are a one size fits all.
Yeah.
But I think the goal of asking you that question is really just for anyone who's listening who might be like, what can I try? Because I think a
Hmm.
lot of the healing journey is really just trying a lot of different things and seeing what works for you because I've seen one thing work for somebody and it doesn't work for the other person. It's just so individual depending on what you're going through and what's like your genetic expressions and, so many things.
Totally. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I've seen people have like not be able to really tolerate EMDR either. It's like too like re-traumatizing or it brings too much up.
Yeah.
So Yeah, I pretty much like fully agree with that. You kind of have
Yeah.
to like see what works best for you. The Gupta program will recommend as well. There's like Primal Trust, but I don't
Yeah.
my understanding is that's not quite it's not the same like methodology as neurofeedback, but I do like everything they share. I'm like, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
So I think that could be a wonderful option. I have zero affiliation with them. They don't even know I exist,
Yeah.
but the work is great. And I'm trying to think of anything else. Like also just really trying to, if you are in a situation where you're like in mold or whatever and you feel super activated, like get yourself to safety. Get yourself to safety. Like get yourself
Yeah.
into an environment that's better. Even if it's just like and I know that this is not available for everyone, but if you can go stay with a friend or you can stay with family or something to just like get yourself out of that environment for even a month, you rent another place for 1 month and so you can kind of like come back down to
Right.
normal, like your regulated self.
Right.
I think is really important. And I also think it's really important to like do what you can to get out of your head. Like be with your friends, be with your family, like go to a funny movie,
Yeah.
go to a dance class, like these things can also help us like pattern interrupt, right? Because when we're on our own and then we're like scrolling Instagram and we're reading and then we're listening to podcasts and then we're watching things about it on YouTube, it's like you'll just spiral yourself out. And this is not I'm not blaming you. I did this.
No,
Like
same.
yeah.
And it was so hard too because it was especially doing the work that I do and trying to spot building defects and all this stuff. I mean, it was hard
Yeah.
to not go into every place that I went in and just want to scan my environment for threats, but then that's like increasing my cortisol, like
Yep.
making me feel more stressed. Then that it's a vicious cycle because then now that's impacting my gut. And it's like,
Yeah. I
is it the
know.
toxin or is it the stress? At some point, you have to tackle both things
Yes,
to really
agree.
find full healing. Um,
I
yeah,
agree. I love that you said that. I think a lot of people are looking for this or that, and I'm like, it's kind of both. I hate to say it, but you you got to do both,
yeah.
because that's when it really truly can work. And sometimes you're kind of more available for one versus the other, or you're gonna respond better to one versus the other, But yeah, hard agree on that. I think there's no or. It's really and.
Yeah, absolutely. I just love what you do. I love that you bring all of this wisdom into it through the lens of gut and skin because I think that that's kind of like the thing that pushes people to really make a change sometimes. It's like that physical thing or like that thing that they just don't love about themselves, like, oh, I can't fit in my pants or I feel overweight or that's sometimes the thing that really pushes people. Like I know for myself, like I felt horrible, but I was like, I need to lose weight. Like I don't know.
Mm,
There was just this thing of like, I know I feel
yeah.
bad, but I'm more adept to do something because I feel like I'm overweight or I have a physical thing that I don't like, as opposed to just being like, I don't know, I just don't feel so good. I don't know how
Mhm.
to explain it. Sometimes it's just like you really need that thing to push you to
Yeah.
get help, to get the support. And I think that gut issues are one of those things where they're like, I need to find the help, and that
Mhm.
you are the person who can uncover all these other missing pieces to help them just change their lifestyle and change
Yeah.
like just their whole life. Like it's so beautiful because so much beauty comes out of that. And that's really like the common thread of what I want to take away from this podcast is who are we becoming in this
Mhm.
process? Who are we becoming in this process of learning about our health and our environment and how how does this shape us? And so with that, I kind of want to leave you with my big question that I want to tie all of our podcast guests together with. And what part of yourself has really awakened through this work that you're doing? Like, is there any insights that you've gained over the years of just doing this work where you just feel a little bit of enlightenment that you can
Mhm.
leave people with today to let them know that when they get to the other side, there's always something to learn?
I could say so many things. It's completely changed me, like it wakes you up and then you can't unsee certain things and also you don't even want to unsee certain things. Like it changes who you are in a good way. I'd say probably this is such a beautiful question first off, but I think probably the emotional component. Like if I'm a big believer as well, which like we talk about gut issues, yes, and bloating, but if there is unprocessed emotion, or if there is like if you don't really like love yourself, I mean, we're I can't get you better, you know, and I can help guide the way for you, but I had to really do so much work, and it was the most life-changing work, and so worth it, and I continue to do it around like, how am I speaking to myself? Like, how am I talking to myself? And why am I waking up and checking my stomach every morning and what it looks like? And does it look any smaller? It's like so I think that that piece of me of like really understanding that your emotional wellness and how you speak to yourself and how you view the world is just as important as like eating fiber. You know,
Mhm.
it's that piece is, and that's what I want to share with all clients. And sometimes we can get them there, and sometimes, you know, they're not ready to see that yet. But I think that I hope that's making sense. It's this like
It is.
other layer of like loving yourself, which I know sounds kind of cheesy, but and what's in the way of you not loving yourself, and what are these like these belief systems and patterns that you're just like reaffirming day after day, and where do they come from, and why do you think you have to look this way, and why do you think you have to work this hard, and why do you think that this is the right way and this is the wrong way, and peeling some of that back, I think is like so game changing. In addition to, one of the things that I really had to learn was like, I have to source safety within myself, and really working on feeling safe in my own body, which I will say like EMDR helped me a lot with, and like also peeling back like childhood trauma and all of that stuff like helped a lot with. But really like, it's like, okay, if there's a threat in the environment, maybe it's mold, maybe it's, you know, this or that, or maybe it's like a plate of French fries that are like quote unquote bad for you or whatever. It's like, can I feel safe in my body first? Because no one else can really do that for me, you know? So,
Mm.
really learning how to like self-regulate, which I think is like a worthwhile tool, and will be forever, you know, because things will change. Like, your health can change, your environment can change, your job can change, your financial situation can change. And it's like, how are you going to hold that and feel safe in your own body throughout all of that?
Yeah, building resiliency. Like, oh my gosh, I love that so much because I feel like for me, that has been my biggest takeaway. Like, even what I was just saying earlier in the podcast, it was that, oh, felt like I was gaining weight. It was okay, that might would make me move, right? But the deeper underlying layer of that is, why can't I love myself
Yeah.
without like feeling like I need to change something about myself? And I see that in so many people, and it's really hard. It's really
It
hard.
is.
And I love one of the practices that has helped me with that is really truly, and again, I love that you said it does sound cheesy, but truly looking in the mirror in the morning and like saying something nice, like finding
Mm,
something I really like about myself and just saying like, I really love the way that, your hair looks today, or like, just it could be so simple. And you might not believe it at first, but it's just interrupting that pattern of what you would normally look in the mirror and think.
yeah.
And that really unfolds into so many other aspects of our life.
Hmm.
And I always say that too, with even with our environments, like I could help you, we could build a healthy, non-toxic home. We could go through every single thing, building science. You could have the best team on your side. You could do all the things, but if you don't feel safe inside your body, you're
Hmm.
not going to feel safe inside your home. There's no such
Yes.
thing as a safe home. Like our home is our skin, and
Yeah.
that is where we need to feel safe first. Otherwise, you're spending money on things that it's never going to change the root.
Yeah, 100%. I had my therapist said to me once, because I had dealt with the mold and I had moved a bunch of times, and then I moved into this apartment, and then we got hit by a hurricane, and then there's like water all in of course my apartment gets damaged. Meanwhile, my friend is in the same building and she doesn't get any damage. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." And I'm full freak, you know? And then I'm like full freak out. And I'm just like, I cannot believe this is happening again, and blah, blah, blah. Which of course, like, it's awful and it sucks. But my therapist was able to reveal to me, like, this is obviously an issue. Yes, like in your external environment, this is an issue, but this is hitting you so hard because there's a deeper story here, and you didn't feel safe in your home as a little girl, you know? So, which is the truth. So I'm like, okay. And she's like, that doesn't mean that the water damage isn't an issue and the mold isn't an issue, right? And like we can get out or we can repair it or whatever. But she's like, this is the reason why you are like full freak out here is because it's hitting something deeper, you know? And it's like from that lens, it's like, I'm like, really? She's like,
I know.
she's like, yeah, you know, and then I can bring in compassion for little me, you know, and that just like really truly changes the game because then you feel more empowered. You're like, okay, this is an issue, yes, but I got this, you know, I can get through this, and then you can kind of build that resiliency, like you were saying.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love this
Yeah.
conversation, Hannah. You're so amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us here. I can't wait for everyone to listen to this. How can people find you? How can they work with you? Where should they reach out to you? Tell us all the things.
Yes, thank you for having me. I know we could talk forever. We can just keep talking. Yes, so you can connect with me. We launched a podcast this year. It's been like very well received. It's been really like firing me up, where I go into detail on like all things gut health, gut function, SIBO, histamine overload, all sorts of stuff. So if you're someone that's dealing with chronic digestive issues, like please come on over and have a listen to that. It's called the Nutrient Dense Podcast. And then also I'm like pretty active on Instagram. So you can find me at Hannah Aylward HHC. And then if you're interested in working with us, you can always send me a DM and we can book a call, or you can go to my website, which is just hannahaylward.com, and you can contact us through there, and you know, we can chat and see how we can help you.
Awesome. All right, everyone, go check out Hannah's Instagram. Go check out her podcast. I know I can't wait to go listen to a couple of episodes we talked about even in this podcast. And awesome. Well, thanks, Hannah.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning in to today's podcast. We have one more thing before you go. We are giving away one spot into our Conscious Construction Container program, which is our signature program that helps you build and renovate your home from the ground up to reduce your exposure to mold, chemicals, and electromagnetic radiation. And even if you're not building a home, we've had a lot of students who have gone through the program who are not building a home, who have found immense value in going through the program because now they understand how their homes work and they're able to spot issues in homes that they're looking at, potentially to buy. And they just understand how to make their own home healthier through understanding these basic principles. All you have to do to enter to win is to listen to one episode of the Awakening Spaces podcast and subscribe and follow the show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify podcast. And we'll give you 2 entries if you do it on both platforms. Comment on the Instagram post that we have linked below and tag a friend who you think would love this podcast or could benefit from the podcast. And every tag is another entry. I just want to say thank you so much for being here, for listening, and for leaving a rating and review, because this is going to help us get better guests onto the podcast in the future to provide you with more value. So we really do appreciate every star, every like, every comments, and every subscribe that you can give us, because it really does help us bring you more value in the future. So thanks again for being here, and we'll see you on the next episode.